I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's like nice being on this side of the show, you know.
Oh my goodness, I know. Because you had started a podcast, right?
I have a podcast with over 95 episodes. Yeah.
No,
I started it in February of 22. Yeah, February of 22.
so what you're saying is we're very lucky to have you on our show today.
Up. I don't say that, but okay. No, I mean,
I will say
it's,
that.
I know, it's funny.
Actually, what's your podcast?
So it's called Stress-Free IEP.
Love
Um, that has been trademarked, registered trademark. And it's funny because I had a YouTube channel in which I had started doing like 3-minute videos, and my cousin, who was a neuropsychologist in New York, was like, we should do something together, we should do something together. And so February 22, we did our first episode together. And since then, it's kind of morphed into it, helping families build their village because, parenting is hard enough. Add in neurodiverse children, and it's even harder. And knowing who to ask or what's available or what's out there is like so overwhelming because you don't know unless you have family that has been there. Even then, you don't because everything's different. And so I have people on my show that are like everything. It's from psychologists to occupational therapists, like physical therapists, able accounts, special needs trusts, like anything you would need as a parent and or a parent of a neurodiverse child. I mean, just in general, like everything, it's literally here's your village, pick and choose what works for you, you know?
I love that. And I feel like it is so I work with a lot of like neurodiverse teens. That's like a lot of my population. And either they haven't been like diagnosed or the diagnosis has been very minimally impactful in like what they need in school, right? Or other settings. And then I also have my own little neurodiverse nugget in it, like talking about the structure, the support, the community that people need is like so like you can't do it by yourself. We weren't meant to live in vacuums, but because of where we are, we do. And it's so important to have that community to find that space and to like actually have your needs get met.
And I have both of my two kids are neurodiverse as well. So it's funny because, of course, my business coach was always like, well, you need to do the, return on investment, return on investment. I'm like, I don't care. I am doing this show. I don't care if I don't get any direct clients because what I'm learning personally from half these people that I'm having on my show, I'm like, I'm using it at home, So yeah,
No,
because it's
100%.
yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like I have that nice cross of professional and personal and pull it all together.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, are you an attorney? Like
I
what's your
am.
ah
I am. So my career started, and so like my nutshell story is when I was younger, I didn't think I was smart enough to go to law school. I was brought up in the era that special ed was not really a thing unless you were like severely mentally challenged. And so I'm sure there was learning disabilities back there somewhere. I'm sure I have them. Never diagnosed, nothing ever done. So I never thought I was smart. I went into teaching and I was in the class. I was general education, then I was special education, and then I was special ed coordinator. They wanted me so that was 9 years, and then they wanted me to take the next level up district job. And I was like, you know what? This just isn't working for me anymore. Like, this isn't about the kids anymore. And I said, I'm going to take the LSATs and just see what happens. Like it was never, I'm going to go to law school. It was just like, let me see what happens and let me just see. And so I took the LSAT. Well, before taking the LSATs, my friend's like, well, you have to take the Kaplan if you're going to take the LSATs. Fine, whatever, I'll take the Kaplan. And then I'm studying with the people in Kaplan, like, what do you mean you're not applying to law school? You have to apply to law school if you're taking the LSATs. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll apply to a couple of schools. And so I applied to schools and da da da. Next thing I know, I'm getting an acceptance letter. I'm like, I'm going to law school. I'm like, oh wait, oh my God, I'm going to law school. Like it was just kind of like this, like it never connected in my head that I was planning on going to law school and I was going to be a law student. So I wound up at law school and then I worked for a year and a half. I was down in Florida at the time. I worked for a year and a half for a family law attorney and it was absolutely miserable. I knew I wanted to do special education law, but I wasn't sure how to break into it. And the person I was working with didn't know how to help build like what to do type stuff. So things weren't working out with him, things weren't working out with a boyfriend. I moved back up to Maryland and discovered the DC Superior Court panels with the abuse and neglect system to be an education attorney. And so that's where I kind of got started and got my feet wet and started building, and then building my private practice, combining. And then, while building my private practice, I wound up having two children and both wind up being neurodiverse, but not found out until later. My older one is autism with PDA profile. And I knew nothing about PDA profile until I had a client come in. And the client came in and was like, my daughter has autism with PDA. I'm like, PDA, what's that? He's like, here's some research. And I'm reading it and I went, oh my God, that's my daughter's profile. Like I knew right off the bat. And then, of course, then went and got her evaluated and got the diagnosis and everything. But yeah, and then that's where I am. So I'm a attorney and advocate and mom. And, I always like to say there's been 5 seats that I'm at a table at an IEP meeting, and there's nobody in an IEP meeting that can say they've been at all 5. Maybe 2 or 3, but to be at all 5 is like, yeah, not.
No, I was
So,
gonna say I can do mom and therapist at this point,
right.
but that I'm limited to those two. That's amazing though. How old are your kids now? Are they teens?
No, they're 8 and 11.
So you're prepping for teenagehood.
Oh yeah. Although my 11-year-old is, yeah, yeah, my sassy thing.
I was gonna
She's
say they
the
get spicy.
Oh yeah, she's a little version of me with added, because of the autism and the PDA. Yeah, she's a little handful, but she's awesome. She's such a great kid, but yes, I want you to have that curiosity and questioning, but not when I'm telling you to do something, like.
Not when we have 3 seconds to get out the door. Like,
Exactly. Like I am all for your autonomy. I'm 100%. I want you to have independence and stuff, but like this is not negotiable. Like,
I question how important do you think it is for like your job, your advocacy part to have like the lived experience of like raising neurodiverse children?
so it just gives a different perspective. Because I was doing this before I even knew my kids were neurodiverse, before I even had children. But being a mom living it just gives that perspective. My senior attorney does not have children, but she's just as effective. It's like for me, it's that I connect better with the clients in the sense because I'm like, I've lived it, I've been here, but it's not necessarily needed in order to get what we need from the classroom, from the teachers, from the IEP meeting and stuff. It's helpful just because I can be like, look, I do this at home. Like I'm not asking you to do something, but that's also my teaching experience. Like I'm not asking you to do something that I didn't do myself in the classroom, So it's just a different perspective. So like as I said, like it's not necessary. It adds value in that sense though, because I relate to the clients more because I'm like, I've been there, I get it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love how you said it. It adds a perspective and like a difference in value potentially, because it's like you really can emphasize with that person and be like, I get it. I've been there. But I agree with you. I don't think it takes away from someone being truly effective in those positions as long as they like know the system and can do the stuff.
Right, right. Exactly. And sometimes, I mean, I don't want to say it's hindering, but like thinking about it of like my emotions are still there. You know what I mean? Like I'm human. And so in an IEP meeting, something might be said that triggers me because as a parent, you know what I mean? Like that might come out. Now, obviously, I've been doing this enough years, I stay professional and stuff, but it's still something, but I'm also human. So like there's been times I've gotten a little snotty with teachers because they've said something that triggers me. And that's okay. I mean, again, like we're human, but it's just a factor to consider. And like, you never know what's going to happen at IEP meetings, unfortunately, because people are different every day. And and different things are said and different things are triggered and different things happen that day that like I didn't sleep well last night, so I might be a little moodier than usual. And
Oh my gosh, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like, I had a swim coach when I was in high school who used to tell us, leave all your stuff at the door when you get to practice, leave all your stuff. I understood what he was trying to say. And I think at the same time, it really invalidated the actual life that we were going through. Right. And I think the same thing as a therapist, as any professional, is that we are going to do the best we can to manage the internal and external circumstances that we have going on that day. And at the end of the day, we're still human. Like we're still going to have reactions to things, but it's our job to understand where those reactions are coming from and to try to mitigate them when they're happening because no one is truly a blank slate. Even AI isn't even a blank slate once you've done some interaction. So I feel like knowing where you're coming from and being able to like say like this is my day, this is what's happening for me and still do the job is like that's the professionalism piece.
Exactly. And being able to use the coping strategies that, we hope our kids are learning. And we were talking about how we're all human. And I was making the comment about like, I've blown up at my kids. Things came out of my mouth that I'm like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that. But then like later I calm down and I'm like, oh. And then I'll go into my kid and be like, look, mommy's sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. This triggered me. And so let's talk about that punishment because I might have been a little harsh on the punishment and it doesn't really meet the crime. So let's talk about what you did and what we can do to so that it doesn't continue to happen. So I don't get triggered and you don't get triggered because neither of us like being in this situation. But that take for me came from doing my show and learning techniques and learning that like I need to model this for my child. It's not
Sorry, I'm like that. You get like gold star, right? Like as a parent, because I feel like that is one of the things we talk so much about. I talk so much about with like any of the parents I work with is that your teen, your kid, whatever age, right, is learning from the things that you actively do. So if you have a kid who is struggling with like coming back and making the repair, I really have them ask themselves, like, do you ever do that with them? Because if you're not role modeling that, the likelihood that they're going to spontaneously in their 8 to 12 to 15-year brain be like, oh, this is a really good thing. And psychology says blah, blah, blah. And this, right, they're not going to do that. But the practical nature of that is like, hey, I'm owning my stuff. I'm being accountable. I'm being responsible. I'm honoring you as a human. And I want to talk about what happened so that we're both on the same page and that we can figure it out going forward. Like that is like the beautiful cycle of repair that I wish like everyone could really like see and understand because like that also for you builds trust. They can trust that like when you've gotten to the point where maybe you're like, oh, that wasn't fair, or like this thing happened, you're gonna be like, got it.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like that she knows she can then come to me and be like, you know what, mom, when you did this, it really wasn't fair. And we can have a conversation. And that's, and like there'll be times I'm like, yeah, I get it, but at this point it's not negotiable. When she's learned that. Like, like there are times, yeah, yeah, okay, you might be right. I get your point and I hear you, but yeah, no, it's not changing.
Well, it doesn't have to,
Right,
right?
exactly. But the I like the fact that yes, I love the fact that she's learning how to stand up for herself and how to be like, hey, that wasn't fair and all of that stuff. I always joke around like the characteristics that I want her to have when she's a young adult don't necessarily work right now when she's 11, you know.
Absolutely.
But she needs to develop them, so I gotta suck it up and deal.
No, it's role modeling is such a core part of
Mhm.
parenting. And I know that, like, you talked about how it's taken you a bit to get there. And I think that those are all lessons we learn as parents, right?
Mhm.
Like, they give you a very brief, like, instruction manual for how to support an infant. And then you get these check ins, like, every
Right.
6 months when you go to the doctor. But then at the end of the day, when you have a 5-year old, an 8-year old, a 10-year old, a 12-year old, or whatever, like, there's no instruction manual for that,
Yep. Yep.
right?
And just when you think you haven't figured it out, they switch up. It's like, wait, that what just happened?
Well, and the things that typically too like trigger us are things that often are just like these deep lying pieces where it's like, how do we work through that? Right. Because our regulation is really important with them. And it's a lot because I feel like sometimes they're just always triggering different things, and you're like, I just figured this one thing out. Can we just stop the triggers for like four
Right.
minutes? I can like,
Exactly.
right?
Right. But I also use that language with her. I'll be like, you know what? I use with my husband sometimes that I need to tap out. And we both know like I need to tap out right now and like walk away. And like Seth will say to me, like, I'm about to lose it. I'm like, I got it. Go for a walk. Go. Like we know. So we're learning our triggers and showing the kids like, hey, it's okay to say, I need a minute. That just reminded me of my daughter one time, so she has regular therapy and she has physical therapy. And one time she was like, Mom, I just can't do both because My therapist is saying to walk away, but my physical therapist is saying not to walk away, for stand up for myself. And so I was like, okay. So then we had the conversation, and I told both of them so that they could have the conversation of what the difference is in the different scenarios. Because 100%, there are times you just want to walk away and it's okay to run away. There are other times that you need to, like, no, I'm going to find a way to stay here and stand my ground, and it's learning that difference. And so it was great that she was able to communicate that she was being taught two different things and she didn't know what to do. So then we could differentiate. But again, that comes from her seeing me model it, talking to her own therapist, seeing other people model it, and so forth.
Yeah. Well, that's how we all learn, right? That's how we learn to be part of society. It's how we learn to be part of like our family systems, our social systems, our school. It's more role modeling the expectations than it is telling what the expectations are.
Right. And that's always the challenge, is that a lot of times parents and adults don't always get that. I remember when I was a teacher and we would say something like, why is this child like that? And then we'd meet the parent and be like, oh, you know, like that explains things. And that's why there are times like my daughter will come home and complain about a kid or something. And, like it's still that fine line of do we get involved? Do we not get involved? And my husband sometimes, he's daddy mode and he's like, I'm going to talk to the parent. I'm like, yeah, honey, you can try, but chances are if this kid is like that, parents not going to be much better, and talking to the parents not. And so we need to talk to our child about we can't change how other people are, but we can change how we react to other people. And that's what we need to do.
And we get to choose what our relationship and our connection is like with that person, right? Because just because you have a soccer teammate doesn't mean you have to be best friends.
Right, exactly. And we talk about that a lot with Girl Scouts. Friend and I started when our kids were in kindergarten, and they're going into sixth grade now, and they're still in the troop. And the younger ones are, and talk about like how, yeah, there are Girl Scout sisters. And guess what? They're going to be our Girl Scout sisters no matter what. Are we going to get along with all of them all the time? No, but we need to learn how to function as a Girl Scout troop together and work together. And we're going to do things that are going to upset each other. And that's okay, because then we're going to talk through it and like, hey, I didn't like it. You did this, and I would prefer if you don't, and learn that skills. I mean, she said one time, like she got in a fight with one of the girls, was like, you're not being very much like a Girl Scout sister. And the other one's like, well, but you're annoying me, or so. And it was just cute because they were able to talk it through, and like they get it. They were able to talk through and come through that. The one, like my daughter thought she was being the other child was cheating in one of the games by doing some unfair things. And the other one's like, well, it wasn't. She's like, I was helping everybody. And okay, maybe I probably shouldn't have, but I was doing it for everybody. I wasn't just doing it for one. And my daughter was like, oh, okay, well, but I see why. And it's kind of cool that they worked it out because, you have to. You're going to be Girl Scout sisters no matter what. We're not changing troops just because you're not getting along with it.
Well, but also the ability to have those conversations does grow connection over time. And like, I think that when we're friends with people, when we're partners with people, when we're colleagues, whatever, we should be holding space for every kind of like iteration of that person. We are all learning and growing. And I read a quote the other day that I just loved. I can't remember who said it, but they talked about how when you marry someone, you are not just committing to them, you are committing to every iteration and like after that. And I just thought that was really beautiful because you're right. Like as humans, we change, we grow. There's things in people we dislike or, don't have a great connection to. And then that shifts. So like I can't tell you how many times I have someone who's like, let's say a ninth grader, they're a freshman in high school, and they're like, Cindy's a fucking bitch, blah, blah, whatever. And like, I'm so mad at this person. And, then 3 years later, they're like the best of friends and they play soccer together and they're like going to prom in the same group. I try to have the capacity to support everyone and understanding that people are going to shift. And they may shift towards you and it might be great. And they may shift away from you and you'd be like, I don't like this person. They're mean. They don't play by the rules, but I don't have to be best friends with them. And that's okay.
Right. It's what was it saying? There's like people in your life are for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And you never know which it might be, but it's, because we all grow and change and you're committing to that. And I'm trying to remember the quote. There was something about here's to my friends that have been around and have stayed with me through all phases, like there's a group of friends that we've been friends since elementary school. And so it's like kind of cool that like we know we don't have to talk half the time. I can just say one word and she knows exactly what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like we've just been friends for so long. And it's like, and they've seen me through all stages of my life and all of my different phases where like some people like in my phase now, they're like, you used to do what? Like I'm like, yeah, I was a teenager once too. Like they've seen all of it and stuck with me through all of it, just like I've stuck with them through all of that, yeah, all of it as well.
I think that, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this with the families that you work with, like as like the advocacy piece, is like having that commitment as a professional of like, I'm going to be here with you. Come hell or high water, blood, sweat, and tears, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like having that commitment of like, I'm here with you, I'm in it, I'm not leaving. There are so many people that can't say that they have someone like that. But like having an advocate, having a therapist, having a family therapist, having someone who is like, we're going to figure it out together. Like I'm in this just as much as you are, I think is a really special role. But it also showcases and role models this idea that like we can hang with the hard stuff.
And that's where stress-free IEP came about. And that's what I tell my clients is like, we are here for you. We've got you. You can be the parent. You can get emotional. You can not worry about what everybody's saying and anything. Like if you need to check out, check out. It's okay. We're here. We've got you and we'll, bring you back when we need to bring you back. But, the other thing that we like to tell our clients is that there's nothing you can say in an IEP meeting that one of us can't turn around and say, what my client is trying to say is, and put it in the words that we need it to be in to get it impactful for the IEP, for the evaluation, for whatever it is we're trying to achieve. I've had clients, I love it, that have like literally gone off on the schools and been like, I can't believe you call yourself educators, and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, we need to bring this back about focusing on this child. I hear a lot of XYZ, but is this really what this child needs? So, and that's what I always say, like going to an IEP meeting is hard. It's challenging. I still get emotional going to my kids' IEP meetings. They're both in elementary school still. So like I've had the same special ed coordinator who I absolutely adore. Like I love the school. We have that relationship, but it's still hard going to the IEP meeting and hearing like these are, what's going on with your child and this is what's happening and this is, and I as a parent still go through the why can't she just be normal? Like, well, I'm not normal either, What is normal?
What is their normal does not exist. The limit does not
Yeah, exactly.
exist.
Exactly. And it's just, it's still challenging. I'm like, why does she do that? Like, you know what? This is who she is. And let's see how we can adjust to make it better for her. It's the old, I'm sure you've seen the meme of like, or the quote that if a flower can't grow, we change the environment, not the flower. And that's what it is for our neurodiverse kids, is how can we adjust the environment to fit our kids?
Actually, I'm really curious on your thoughts on this because I feel like maybe it's a more controversial take, but I get really frustrated with our school systems in terms of, I feel like we have research, we have data, we have like science-based studies that are done on education and how kids learn and what they need. And I feel like we are stuck in this kind of like archaic system of this is what school is supposed to be like. It drives me crazy because I'm like, we have the research, right? We have the research around sleep and teen brains and a delayed like school start. Why can't we have teenagers who have like a 9 to 3, 9 to 4 schedule? Why are we forcing little babies to get out of bed at like 6:30 in the morning to get to school by 7 when the parents don't even work until like 9? Most people start at 9. I'm just must be a better way. And I think that I really wish our school systems were more open to like being progressive instead of just like sticking with what they've always known.
Right. It just, yesterday I was talking about it. And I don't remember the statistics fully, but the part that I do remember that hit home the most is that there's a study that test scores increased by 17% when kids have had breakfast, And it's like, I get it, But why isn't there free breakfast for everyone? Why isn't there free lunch for everyone? Because even in, like I say it all the time, like, look, can I afford to feed my kids breakfast and lunch every day? 100%. Do I always have time to get my kids a hot breakfast in the morning? Rarely. They're drinking a nutritional shake, a protein shake while they're running out the door to catch the bus, and that's it. And, yeah, when they get to school, they can buy a lunch breakfast if they want, but why isn't that just available for all kids? Like if you're hungry, there's food, eat. We have it.
If we think about food at the core, food is something that, like, when you sit at a table and you break bread with someone, you have more of a community. I had a supervisor who I absolutely adored, and she was Indian, and she talked so much about the impact of food on culture and connection and all that stuff. And so I was supported in like breaking bread with clients because I did a lot of in-home work. So we talk about the entire structure of school. If the only kids that are getting hot lunches, hot breakfast from school are the kids that parents don't care or didn't have time or whatever, we're focusing on the wrong piece. But if every kid has access to a breakfast, a lunch, a snack, we're also encouraging community and connection, encouraging this natural thing of like food nourishes our bodies. And there's going to be more like social connection in between them during those meals. Brain functioning increases because we know that they're at least eating. So test scores are going to be better. They're going to be more in a place to learn. There's all these pieces that I'm like, we have information on this. Like we've done the studies.
Yeah. It's just like looking at it, it's the issue is that how do you totally change a system? And that's the problem. It's easier to do what you've always done. It's going to take steps though, you know what I mean? And the baby steps and who has the drive to do it and make it happen. Because right now, it's like teachers are overwhelmed to begin with, administrators are overwhelmed to begin with. Who has the time to now be like, oh, let's petition for this to happen or that to happen or to change this and change that? It's frustrating. I see how much money spent poured down the drain of like, oh, let's try this new reading curriculum. Oh, let's try this new math curriculum. Let's try this new science curriculum. And all this money put into that. It's like, go back to the basics, feeding and clothing your children, you know?
Giving them recess.
Yes. Oh God, that is such a huge thing. Yes.
Right? Like, and
Yeah.
I can appreciate, maybe I'm a dreamer. I can appreciate that, like, we have gym for our like middle schoolers and high schools. We have PE requirements. But to me, I'm just like, why aren't we giving them 45 minutes of just fresh air outside where they can like wander and lay down and take a nap if they want to or hang out with their friends? Why aren't we encouraging them to play sports within their communities instead of harboring this idea of you have to be in PE every block and feel gross and disgusting and sweaty because literally nobody likes PE, maybe except for some of the athletic boys.
What right. And what do they like? They like when it's basketball because they're a basketball player, or when it's baseball. And you're forcing all of these kids to do all these sports and team sports that like, why? Whereas if you look at PE different of like, yes, we want to teach our kids to be a team member sometimes, but what if, you know what, some people aren't team members. Why aren't we teaching them instead of PE as in, oh, we're going to do kickball now, we're going to do baseball now, we're going to do that of like, hey, this PE class is 45 minutes of exercise. Whatever exercise you choose to do, here are the options for today. We're going to be out on the field. If you want to run around the track, if you want to play basketball, if you want to play football, find your peeps and plan it and do it. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be recess, but why do we have to have a curriculum for PE in that sense? Whereas it can just be a healthy living.
I feel like we're missing out too. Because so when I was in middle school, elementary school, high school, I swam on the local club team. And I got to meet people from like the next city over. I got to meet people that lived out in the country. I got to meet people that were like older and younger because the way we swam was like age groups. You had 13 and 15, whatever. I wasn't just stuck with the kids in my grade. So I got to meet all these people. I got to go to all these different cool places. And I'm just like, why are we sitting here saying you have to do PE or you have to play on a team at school when like our community is literally what's supposed to be supporting us, right? We're supposed to be encouraging connection with that. Why can't we also say, hey, if you don't want to do PE in school, fine, join a team, participate in a soccer team, prove it at the end. That's your PE credit.
Right. get the life credit for it. They do it, they let people test out for language. But yeah, I mean, that like I didn't even think about that, but like that makes sense. Like if you're a swimmer and you swim 5 days a week, why do you have to take a PE credit? Why can't you credit out for it and then you can take an art class instead?
That's the thing that drives me crazy is that like they have all these requirements of things that they have to do, but then they're not actually giving them time to do the things that they actually would want to do with that time. I talked to someone the other day who was born and raised in Germany, went through school, became a social worker, wonderful human, and was talking about how like her entire college education was 4 years, and that included her master's in counseling and social work. I can't remember which one, to be able to like practice. And what's wild to me is I went through 7 years of school, 7 years of like undergrad, grad school, whatever, to get where I'm at now. So she had more specialized training. She was out faster. She had less debt. She really got to focus on what she wanted to do. So if you have someone who's like an art kid, but loves to play golf, let them play golf at the local golf place, go 3 times a week, have some sort of hour requirement for it, and then let them do 3 classes of art. If they don't want to do that, let them get out early, go have an internship, go have a job. Like, I just feel like we're thinking about it from this space of like how many times can we hit our head against a wall versus like let's really be proactive and think about what we want our kids to do as adults, which is be in their community.
No, it's so true. And who has this sitting at a desk for 6 hours a day is how you learn. That's the stuff that makes me crazy. I have, like, it's not a popular opinion and I don't care, is that my kids don't do homework. I mean, if they want to, they can. It's not like I'm saying you're not allowed to, but my thought is they just spend 6 hours a day in the classroom. I'm finally, like, when we moved into our neighborhood, we didn't have any kids in our cul-de-sac. We finally have, like, almost every single house on our cul-de-sac has kids. And so the kids are outside playing together all of the time. I'm like, my kids aren't coming in and doing homework. My kids are out playing with the kids. And guess what? They're learning social skills and they're learning how to, oh, she pissed me off today because she did X, Y, Z. I'm like, okay, so how are you handling it? And they're working through it. And the parents and I are so funny because we're talking, we're like, okay, are we getting involved or are we letting them work it out? Like we're all texting and, because we have a little text WhatsApp group. But it's like we're letting them work it out. And that's how they're learning how to function in society. Because guess what? Them sitting at home and reading for 30 minutes and doing another, 30 minutes of math is not, is it going to help them learn? I don't know. Studies have shown homework doesn't.
I'm so glad you said that because I feel like I always have this tear because my background, I became an accidental therapist. My background was in science education, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a bio teacher. And then I very quickly was like, I don't like this. I love working with the teenagers, but I don't like teaching because I don't like the expectations they have. And I feel like homework has taken over, and it used to be like do 2 math problems just to make sure you get it and come in the next day. Now I have teenagers who had 8 to 10 hours of homework a night.
And it's when are they supposed to be exactly? When are they supposed to do all the other stuff? And I say all the time, I'm like, I am not worried about my kids academically. My kids are going to be fine academically. I'm worried about my kids' social, emotional, and self-confidence and being able to be function in society in a way that like is not afraid to be themselves. I want them to be well adjusted and doing homework isn't going to do that. Being out playing with the friends is going to do that. Cooking with me is going to do that. Life skills. My husband complains all the time that they don't have home ec and woodworking in school anymore. But like just sew, the basic sewing stuff, my mom probably would have taught me as well. But you know what? But I have that. My mom sews. I don't sew. I know how to, but I'm not teaching it to my kids because I don't have time, but like I wish, but there's other things. Like I know the basic woodworking stuff. Like I can go hammer a nail. I can go fix a basic thing because I took woodworking in junior high school, and I took, home ec and learned the basics of cooking, sewing and cleaning and all that other stuff. And the kids aren't being taught that anymore because they're this standardized test stuff that is what?
Well, and the crazy part to me too, and I don't know, they've done this in Massachusetts, I feel like, is that they've eliminated all of those programs in mainstream school and they've added them to the voc schools. They've added them to the special needs schools. They've added them to that. So it really sends this message that like if you're in any of those classes, you have like special needs. You are like, not like one of those like normal neurotypical people, which kills me because it's like, who doesn't want to learn how to sew? Everyone should, right? Everyone should know basic woodworking. We should know how to cook a meal, right? But when shifted the focus over here to just be academics and standardized testing, and then said, okay, cool, everyone at a special school, you don't have to take the test, you just learn how to sew, it absolutely sends this message that like none of those skills are important or they're beneath me.
Well, and it's the whole, no child left behind, every student succeeds and all that other stuff. Like it used to be that there was math, there was consumer math, there was algebra A and algebra B or full algebra. So for kids that math didn't work for them, they could take algebra over a 2-year period. Now it's everybody has to take algebra, everybody has to take geometry, and then everybody has to take algebra too. Why? Like, I get it because back in the day, it used to be kids were tracked of, oh, you're a college bound kid, you're not a college bound kid. And we want every child to have that capability of going to college. But now what you've done is every child has to have that capability of going to college. But if you're not going to college, now where are you? Because you don't have anything else to fall back on. You don't have that vocational skills. My best friend from high school's brother and I joke around and laugh all the time. He was your typical brought up in a single house, single mom, the 2 kids, paycheck to paycheck. She just had high school, and he was the dumb jock football player. He is now an anesthesiologist doctor. He was tracked to not go to college because that's what, like, oh, he's the dumb, he was a great football player, but he was tracked as like, you're from this kind of family, this is where you are. But another very good friend of mine is like, she's like, yeah, I used to cheat off him all the time in chemistry. Because she knew he was brilliant with that stuff. And it didn't hurt that he was very good looking, but like that was the thing. But so this kid, he put himself through Montgomery College, through undergrad, through medical school. And he's an anesthesiologist doctor. That's not an easy thing to do. But he was tracked. And if like had he not been tracked, who knows what would have been different. And the same thing for me. Like I was not smart growing up. I struggled in math, and my parents are both math people, so like to them it's like, I don't understand how you can't understand this. I'm like, because it's my brain doesn't work that way. But like that's the thing. It's like, so I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I'd go to a better college, be able to go to law school, all that other stuff, because that's the way it was in track. But I was able to still figured it out later. But again, like I have kids in the inner city schools that, yes, some of them are going to go to college and figure out a way. Some of them, they don't want to go to college. That's not in there. But where are they learning any other skill? Like, what's going to happen in 10, 15 years? We're going to have nobody that knows how to do carpentry, HVAC, plumbing, electricity, all of that other stuff that are jobs that are needed, but nobody's learning the basics of that stuff. And so where are they? They're not going to vocational school because they're not available.
Or they're so high admission wise that like there's not enough kids that can get into them to do it. And then the other piece that I get frustrated with is that a lot of people look down on those types of professions. I tell the kids I work with all the time, like, your life is your life. You just have to find a way to support yourself, whether that's plumbing or doctor stuff or, whatever. And there's money in every career if you're willing to really learn and get good at what you do. So like there are plumbers around me that make 180,000 a year. So it's like we're sitting there and people look down and they're like, oh, I would never want to do that. And it's like, but if you're making 180K a year.
And I know doctors that make less than that.
Exactly.
And lawyers for that matter. You know what I mean? Like, I know lawyers that don't even make 100 a year. So it brings up, my daughter is always asked, how much money does this type of person make? How much money do you make if you're this? How much money do you make that? And like, my answer is always the same. Like, honey, it's unlimited. It depends on what you want to do. Like, you want to be a lawyer, you can make anywhere from 50,000 to 50 million a year, depending on what you do and how you do it and how you set it up. Like, it doesn't matter. The same thing was as a doctor, same thing as an electrician, as a carpenter. Then my husband always says, I love it, is find something you love and then figure out how to make money doing it. Because then you never really work a day in your life. And I say that all the time. I love what I do. I love being able to go to IEP meetings. I love being able to network and to meet people and to teach families how to go argue for their kids and to advocate and to get their kids. And I love the phone calls I get after the fact of the parents saying like, Oh my gosh, like life is so different. Thank you so much for getting, for your team and getting my child in the right placement because it's just, you see the difference throughout everything.
Our kids are connected to all of these different aspects in life. And if they're not supported in those different aspects, it's going to show. Whether it's now or 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be there. I know for my kid, had I not had an IEP, we would be in a substantially different place. Thankfully, the district that I'm in, they were incredible, super easy to work with, absolutely wonderful, understood her needs, were like, you got it. I didn't have to fight. But I realize that that is not everybody's experience. And I have been part of far more IEP meetings where I'm looking at them being like, did you actually just fucking say that? Right? Is it
Right?
like I'm just horrified, right? I'm horrified.
Or,
I'm just like,
or
how?
wait, what about when they actually put it in writing? Like, did you just really actually put that in writing? Like, you actually put in your prior written notice that parents asked for this, but we said no because there's no funding. What?
I've been absolutely horrified. And so I think about like teens, right? And I think there's a lot of people that are fearful of working with teens or don't like working with the families, but I'm like, teens are incredible. They're the next generation we have that's coming up into like adulthood. And I want them to have everything they need to get there. That is also connected to the family work. That's connected to the schoolwork. That's connected to outside activities and job preparation and college or voc or whatever. Like all of those things are connected. And I mean, obviously we can't solve every problem, but I love having the input. I love being able to say like, hey, think about this and like, can we do this? And like, this kid needs an IEP. And sometimes I am the one that's really pushing for the IEP to be like, all of these things could be so much better for this kid. This kid could have so much less stress. This kid could like actually be able to engage in their school system and in their community if they had these supports. And that's what I think sometimes kills me about certain parents, because I have parents that are like, oh no, like we don't want to go through the assessment process because like we think they're faking it. And I'm just like, okay, bet. Sign the paperwork, let them go through the testing. If they're faking it, the testing is going to show, because they have to line up all of those things to present a picture. And so it's like, to me, there's never a downside in requesting the initial eval to see like what could be helpful for your kid.
Yeah, and it's, I have so many times of like, well, I don't want to rock the boat. Why? Why not? I remember when I was a teacher and I used to always say all the time, oh, I'm never going to be that parent. Guess what? Wrong. I am that parent. And it's okay because if I'm not, I mean, like, and again, my kids' school is phenomenal. It's great. But there were times that the school they were at was not as great. And I had to pull out my, credentials. And I shouldn't have had to do that, but I did. And I was able to fight for my child, but it's schools don't know. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I say this all the time. Teachers want to help your child. I know that 100%. But when you get into that IEP team meeting, and I can always tell when it is that the principals won't let them, or that they've been told something else and they've been told what we do and how to say it. And that's where having somebody with you that understands what's going on can put it in the right words and get it out there, that it doesn't matter that the teacher doesn't say anything. This school has to do what you're asking for because I know how to read between the lines and I know how to listen to, and, of like when I read their reports and they're like, the teacher might be sitting there and saying, well, yes, they don't need special education. I'm like, really? Well, I'm reading your teacher report and and I'm listing all this stuff and they're like, oh, and like they didn't do anything wrong because the principal told them, don't say they need special ed. Okay, fine, but they have to be honest about what's happening in the classroom. And what about this? What about that? And know how to. And I hate it because we shouldn't have to play this game. It should be about the kids. But unfortunately, there's budgets and there's red tapes and there's this person telling you this and the higher ups telling you that. Like again, that's why I left teaching, is it just wasn't about the kids anymore. But again, like how do we change the whole system? Like what do we do?
My joke to that is like burn it all down. And that's not real. I get that, but I think that's my own thing where it is like super complicated to change these systems that have been ingrained in us for decades. For me, and I joke because I sometimes I tell my partner when like the living room is really messy or something, I'm like, let's just burn it all down and start from phase one. But I realize that it's complicated. And I also wish we just had more progression. And I wish there were people that were like really focusing on like the long-term nature versus like getting really great math scores.
Right. Exactly. Because the standardized tests are not the end all be all. Because that was the other thing. Like I was never a good standardized test taker. So I would never learned how to take tests until my LSATs, basically, which like how many standardized tests did I go through? Like my parents didn't know to like put you in an SAT prep class. My parents were educated, like, and we were upper middle class, but they didn't know because, how do you know that stuff? Would I have done better if I had taken a prep class? Who knows? Maybe. But, it also wasn't the standard back then of everybody taking it. Like nowadays, I think everybody takes the prep classes. But even still, like it's just what we're judging our kids on is not, I don't want to say not fair, but it's ridiculous that we have these sets of standards. Last night at dinner, I was talking, my husband and I and my kids, we were talking about like movies and stuff. And my husband was like, when is it appropriate for them to watch Rain Man? I don't know if you know that movie, if you remember that movie, but like Rain Man. And so it was this conversation. It was like my husband was bringing up the matches scene, which I think it was like 498. It's like when the matches dropped. And the guy was like, no, there's 500 matches. But then he picked up the box and realized there were 2 matches still in the box. And so so he was 100% right on like what, and it was just kind of like, and so we had the conversation with our children about how some brains work so differently, whereas his brain didn't work this way that we expected it to, but in this other area where it was so overdeveloped. And my husband brought up the good point of like, how do we know we're the right? These other kids that brains work differently, like, how do we know that they're not in the right and we're just like not tapping into that higher level thinking that they have that we don't like let's think about it realistically. We're in the rat race because we have to be in the rat race of making the money and earning the money and all this other stuff, and there's so many people that are not and don't care about it. Why are we right and them not?
Right. Well, and I think that's a thing where I think about problems and I'm like, man, there are like a million ways to solve one problem. But we all think about it from different lenses and different priorities and different things that like we're really focused on. And like I think the money thing is like I focus on that because that is a link to my own like rooted survival. But there's a lot of people that are like, no, I want to like go to a job that's no drama, that's no BS, that I don't have to take anything home. I want to be there for 8 hours and I want to go and I want to enjoy my pool or my RV, or I want to go travel on the weekends, or like we're just all so different. And it's just hard to, yeah.
I say all the time, like when I was younger, I used to say all the time that I wanted to just be a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to be a mommy. And that's all I ever wanted. And that's another reason why I went into education, because like if I had to work, I could and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could just do that. And I'm like, you know what? I could just do that. I 100%, like if I chose to not live where I live, chose to not have the house size that I have, chose to not have 2 cars, like I could 100% learn how to live in that lifestyle that I could be a stay-at-home mommy and homeschool my kids, and my husband could totally provide for us. Is that truly what I want anymore? No, I like living in this community. I like living where I'm living. I like having the bigger house and having all the rooms and, and all that other stuff. And I like that. And that's the choice I'm making. But that was like a mind shift I had to do for myself of like, what matters and what's the priority and how do we make that work, and how am I going to adjust that to be able to do all the things I want to do and still do all the other things I want to do, the work-life balance type stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the cool part about raising kids to me is that working with teens is I feel like the way that I view something, the way that I prioritize something is vastly different sometimes from the way that they like want that or see that for themselves. And I really love helping to support that narrative of like, what is important for you versus like, what did you see was important for your parents, right? What did you see was important for the people around you? What did you see and how is that kind of like impacted your own ability to see for yourself, like what's possible and not putting them in the box.
Right. And it's as a parent taking that step back of obviously I worked hard to get to where I am and to provide for my kids and what I want for my kids. But what I think for my kids is a better life isn't necessarily what they think for them is a better life. And I need to respect that and take that step back. Do I want my kids to go to college and potential masters and have good professions? 100%. If my daughter, like she says right now, my daughter says she just wants to be a stay-at-home mom and her husband's going to do all the work and providing, but she's going to do her artwork and sell it on the side. I need to be okay with that because that's her life and her choice. Is it going to be a harder life for her? Potentially, but that's still her life and her choice. and I have to let go of, brings me back around to like being a parent of a neurodiverse child, is that giving yourself the grace of your child is not going to grow up in the life that you thought was going to be, especially for our kids that they might never go to college, they might never get married, they might never live independently. But you know what? That's okay. And it's okay for us as a parent to grieve for that. But then we need to take that step back and look at, you know what? But let's give them the best life that they can be so that they're happy, because that's what's important. What's truly important. They're living their life and they're happy. And like, I just think about things about like my mom saying something about how much my dad worked when we were kids. Well, she was home most of the time. And she worked also for, at the company. But when I look back, I don't feel like I didn't know who my dad was. Like we had, maybe we didn't have as much quantity time, but we had great quality time. We had dinner as a family almost every single night. We took great vacations as a family. We read together on Sunday mornings, watched TV together, you know what I mean? Like we still had it. Yes, he worked hard, he worked long hours, but he was still there. And like what matters is that he was able to provide for us. We grew up not wanting for anything. And it's like, again, like looking back at what's important to you, like is quantity or quality more important?
And I think too, like thinking about it from the perspective of like as a parent, you obviously are going to want better than what you had for your kids. And we focus on better than what we had in the areas that we really felt pain and suffering and frustration and sadness and whatever, because we want to help avoid those like negative emotions. But at the end of the day, our kids at such a young age have their own brain, they have their own choices, they have their own autonomy, they have their own everything. And so it's really our job to help shepherd that and help create narratives and create opportunities and create support so that 18, they can make that choice for themselves and they know what's going to be important for them, how they're going to spend their time and what they're going to focus on. They have good values, they have good morals. It's a journey.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like, and it's also so that they can grow up doing what they want to do, not what they're expected to do, because that's hard. I've come across so many kids as they get older and stuff. I'm like, well, why did you choose to do that? They're like, well, because my parents expected me to be a doctor. I'm like, but what did you want to do? I'm like, oh, my parents expected me to do this. I don't want my kids to do something because they expected me to do it. It just reminded me of the movie Leap of Why Do You Dance? I don't know if you know that movie or not, but like that was the whole thing of why do you dance? And the one girl's like, because I'm good at it. And the other one is like, because it's I come alive, it's who I am, it's like that feeling and emotion. It's like I want my kids to do things because they come alive, it's who they are, it defines them, not because they're good at it or they're expected to do that, or because it makes the most money.
But one thing I see all the time is I feel like when you have a kid who is a younger child and they say like, I want to be a doctor. And then that parent gets in their head, okay, my kid is going to be a doctor. And then the narrative from that point in time until they're 50 is you're going to be a doctor. And I really feel like we need to make space for like, you could be a doctor if you wanted to. You could also be an astronaut. You could be a home chef. You could be a stay-at-home parent. You could be a bus driver. I think that there's so many people that get pigeonholed into these things because they dreamed about it once. All of a sudden that automatically became their expectation for the future, not giving the understanding of like, we're growing, we're changing, right? Like who I am today, vastly different from who I was at 16.
Oh, 100%. I should have to bring this up because I was just remembering a conversation with my mom. We were on vacation or something, and my daughter said something about inventing something. And my mom's like, oh, that's ridiculous. That can never happen. I'm like, mom. Like, that's not what we say. Like obviously I did it out of my daughter's. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you say, well, let's think about that. What do you think we need to do to make that happen? She's like, oh, she'd never thought about it. I'm like, don't shoot down their idea. Like, we know it's a ridiculous idea, but I don't want to shoot down their idea as a ridiculous idea. I want to, who knows? Like somebody that said electricity was going to be a ridiculous idea at some point, you know what I mean? Or indoor plumbing. But did they shoot them down? No, what do you think we need to do to make that happen? And think through that. And then, okay, they tried it, it doesn't work. Let's go something else. But at least it keeps that curiosity of like, yes, it hasn't been done before, but maybe I can do it.
Exactly. There was a really interesting research study done that talked about how by the age of, I think, first grade, we have crushed curiosity by like 50%.
Oh gosh, I'm so
Um,
sore.
and so
Oh,
like it's interesting. And like when we think about the curiosity as a sense of like connection and engagement and interest, if we've killed that, that means we've lost half the kid's desire to like engage
yeah.
in any of the stuff that we're doing. And then it just keeps like decreasing from that point on if
Oh,
they
that's
continue,
so scary.
right? So
That is so scary.
I
That is so
think my
scary.
like plea of the day is like I want the system to change. I want education to be really like engaging and enhancing, and I want it to be something that fits a wide variety of kids, and I want it to be more progressive.
Is it possible? It is. It is, but one step at a time. But that's the thing. And it's like, that's where, like, bringing it back to IEPs and stuff of like teaching the parents, teaching the teachers, explaining it, and just doing one little thing at a time. And then there's things that I do at IEP meetings of like, yeah, that might be hard to do as an individual, but like, why don't you, for every transition, do heads, shoulders, knees, and toes? Because then you're doing the IEP, but you're doing it with everybody else and everybody's benefiting. And, like teaching teachers how to incorporate it into the whole class so that it's not individual. It's still individual. You're still providing that need, but it's not exclusive and it's not like adding something to you.
Exactly. And but I think that's the thing about being creative and being really engaged in your stuff and being able to like problem solve in 20 different areas at the same time.
Right.
And
Right.
every brain is different. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Oh,
well,
yeah,
thank you. Thank you
definitely.
so much
Well,
for coming on today.
course. Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome being on this side of the show, but this has been awesome.
I'm glad you liked it. I feel like
Yeah,
we could talk forever. I have
100%.
so many other things that I would love to chat with you about. So if you're down, I'd love to have you back on.
I would love to. Definitely.
Perfect.
Definitely have a conversation again in the future.
Oh, love it. And I'll link all your stuff below too. So anyone who's interested
Perfect.
in
Stress-free IEP.
stress-free IEP. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Awesome. We'll be in touch, but thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.